I want to talk about something that comes up all the time when you're learning, when you're working from reference, and especially when you start asking yourself that question, is this actually mine? Because that question can stop you in your tracks if you don't understand what's really happening. I was looking at a student's work recently. She had restarted a painting of a flower. She was studying the subtle gradations of color and value, really working at it, really trying to see. And then she said something that I hear all the time. I don't really see this as an original work because the photo was taken by a friend. The photo itself feels like a work of art. And right there is where this conversation lives, because she's not wrong. And she's also missing something really important. You are not trying to be original yet. When you are learning, you are not trying to be original. You are learning to see like an artist. You are trying to understand value, color, edges, relationships. You are trying to train your hand to follow your eye. You are trying to close the gap between what you think you see and what is actually there. The fastest way to do that is imitation, not copying in the sense of pretending it's yours, but copying in the sense of studying. We learn everything this way. You learned how to speak by imitating. You learned how to write by imitating. You learned how to draw as a child by imitating. Somewhere along the way, we start to believe that imitation is cheating when it isn't. It's training. Hi, I'm Carrie, and I'm here to remind you of something important. You are already an artist. And if you're someone with a lot of ideas or work that doesn't look all the same, that doesn't mean you're unfocused. It means you have something to develop. Here on Artist Strong, I help creatives stop feeling like copyists or hobbyists and start building real series of artwork, work that reflects who they are and what they care about. If you're ready to take your ideas and turn them into something more cohesive and intentional, I'm here to help. Sign up for my free workshop, How to Transform Your Ideas into Artwork that is uniquely yours. You'll find the link below. Let's get back into it. The real problem is not imitation. The real problem is stopping there. If you only ever copy and never move beyond it, then yes, you can get stuck. Your work stays dependent on someone else's decisions, someone else's composition, someone else's lighting. It's their voice. That's why eventually Paint Like Me classes stop satisfying you. You can follow other people's processes for creating their art, but you want something more. But if you use imitation as a tool, something shifts. You start asking, why is that edge soft? Why is that value slightly darker than I thought? Why does that color feel more alive than mine? And when you ask those questions enough times, you stop copying shapes and start understanding choices. This is where your voice begins. I'm curious, have you asked yourself any of those questions? How have you approached working from image references? Tell me in the comments below. Inspiration is not a lightning bolt. Inspiration is not this magical moment where suddenly everything you make is completely original. That's not how it works. Inspiration is built from exposure plus understanding. You take in hundreds, thousands of visual decisions over time. You study them, you question them, you internalize them, and then without even realizing it, you start making your own art. Not because you forced originality, but because you built a visual language. So the line between imitation and inspiration is not a hard boundary, and the gray area can create a lot of confusion when you're new to this kind of self-reflection. But it's good. You're in a period of artistic transition. What art history shows us about this shift? This idea of moving from imitation into something more personal is not new. We can actually see it happen across entire periods of art history. Take the transition from the Renaissance to the Baroque. Renaissance, learning to see. During the Renaissance, artists were deeply focused on understanding the world accurately. You see this in the work of Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo. They studied anatomy, perspective, light, proportion. They were in many ways imitating reality in a deeply investigative way. They were asking, how does the body actually work? How does space recede? What makes something look real? This is the same stage you are in when you are working from reference and trying to get it right. Baroque, making decisions. Then we move into the Baroque period. Artists like Caravaggio, Rembrandt, and Artemisia Gentileschi were still using all of that knowledge, but they were no longer just describing reality, they were creating it. Light became dramatic, not just accurate. Compositions became emotional, not just balanced. Moments became charged with tension and movement. They weren't abandoning the rules. Instead, they now understood them well enough to bend them. Example, the story of Judith and Holofernes. One of the clearest ways to see this is by looking at how the same subject gets treated differently over time. Take the story of Judith and Holofernes. Judith and Holofernes comes from a biblical tale about a widow named Judith who saves her city. An enemy general, Holofernes, is preparing to attack. Judith enters his camp, gains his trust, and waits for the right moment. When he is vulnerable, she kills him and returns with his head as proof. It's a story about strategy, power, and control. Same story, two different artists. Let's take a look. Here's earlier versions by Sandro Botticelli. Then, let's compare it to how Artemisia Gentileschi handles the same subject. Same story, same subject matter, but a completely different experience. What's actually changing? In the Renaissance version, everything is controlled. The figures are very vertical and composed. The moment feels distant, and the violent act has already happened. It's about clarity, balance, understanding the scene. You can feel the focus on structure and observation. Now, look at Artemisia's version. You are not observing the scene, you are in it. The lighting is dramatic, the action is immediate, the emotion is charged. Observe the weight to the body, the tension in the hands. There is real urgency in the moment. She is not just showing you what happened, she is setting the mood and tone for the work. This is the shift. Botticelli is working from a place of, how do I represent this clearly? Artemisia is working from a place of, what do I want this to feel like? That's the difference. That difference is built on understanding. Artemisia did not skip the learning stage. She knew anatomy, value, composition, light. She understood the rules well enough to push them. How has this art history conversation helped you understand this transition from imitation to new original art? Share it in the comments below. This is what you're doing too. When you are working from reference and trying to get it right, you are doing what Renaissance artists did. You are learning to see. Here's what that shift looks like in practice. At first, you are asking, how do I make this look the same? Then you start asking, why does this look the way it does? And eventually, you start asking, what do I want to do here? When you start asking what to change, what to emphasize, what to push, you are stepping into something else. You are making decisions. That is where your voice begins. If you try to jump straight to originality without building understanding, you end up frustrated. Your work doesn't match your vision. You don't trust your decisions. And then you assume you're not creative enough. That is not the issue. You're just rushing the process. Stop trying to skip the middle. You are not behind. You are in it. When your work feels like it belongs to the reference, you are in your Renaissance stage. You are building observation. When you start questioning what to change, exaggerate, or emphasize, you are stepping toward Baroque thinking. You are building voice. The goal is not to skip ahead. The goal is to move through it. Because just like in art history, what looks like a sudden shift in style is actually built on a long foundation of understanding. The line is built over time. The line between imitation and inspiration is not about whether you use an image reference. It's about what you do with what you understand. At first, you learn to see. Then you learn to decide. And that is the same path artists have been walking for centuries. So is it yours? Back to that original concern. If I'm working from a photo, is this really mine? Here's the honest answer. At the beginning, no, not fully. And that's okay, because what you are building is the ability to make it yours later. Every time you struggle to match a value and miss it, you are learning something. When you notice a color shift you didn't see before, you are growing your eye. Every time you feel the gap between your work and the reference, you are developing taste. And that gap is not a failure, that's the work. Where this leads, if you stay in that process long enough, something changes. You stop needing the reference as a crutch. You start using it as a tool. You start adjusting things, moving things. simplifying, exaggerating, combining ideas, pulling from multiple sources, from your memory, and eventually you can sit down with nothing in front of you and still build something believable, something intentional, and something that's yours. Copy the work. There's also something I want to say clearly because I think people hesitate to do this. If there is an artist you love, copy them, not to pass it off as your own, not to build a portfolio from it, but to understand them. Copy how they simplify shapes. Copy how they handle edges. Copy how they use color and value to create impact. Because when you do that, you start to see their decisions. You start to understand what they prioritize and what they leave out. And that kind of study will teach you more than trying to be original too soon ever will. But don't stop there. The goal is not to become that artist. I don't condone you promoting that work as your own. The goal is to understand enough that over time those influences become part of your own decision making. That's how inspiration actually forms. The line is not what you think. When I reached out to that Artist Strong Studio member I mentioned at the beginning, she said something that really stuck with me. She said painting her friend's photo felt like translating someone else's poem into a new language, that any artistry of hers would be as the translator, not the poet. A good translator is making decisions the entire time, for example, what to keep, shift, and what meaning matters most. That is not passive. That is interpretation, which is closer to authorship than it might feel. The line between imitation and inspiration is not about whether you used a reference, it's about your relationship to it. Are you copying without thinking? Or are you studying, questioning, and learning? Are you staying dependent? Or are you building the ability to decide? That line moves over time, and if you let it, imitation becomes the foundation of everything original you will ever create. So I'm curious, how have you navigated that line in your own work? Tell me in the comments below. If you're ready to move from understanding this to actually doing it, I have a workshop that walks you through 5 methods to stop copying image references and start exploring your own ideas. Called From Reference to Real, it's 90 minutes and $47. You can enroll today and start watching. Just grab the link here or below. Like and subscribe to my channel to join in these kinds of conversations and never miss a video. Remember, proudly call yourself an artist. Together, we are Artist Strong.